Hey guys, it's Dr. May. How are you? I hope you're doing good today. We're moving on to lesson 21, and we're up to an acronym called Flexible Mind Allows. And this one's really good for repairing relationships or moving through resentments that you might have of a person where you've had a difficult time with them. I'm going to share this with you today because maybe it'll help. Maybe it's worth giving it a shot with some people in your life where you're struggling. Here we go. So flexible mind allows a skill for improving difficult relationships. Okay. And I'm sure we all have some difficult relationships that could be made a little bit better, whether it's a personal relationship, a work relationship, or even kind of like a casual relationship where, we end up bumping into the person here and there, but it becomes uncomfortable because of the past we might have with that person. Okay. So these are some skills that could help with that. Okay. We're going to do the acronym allows. So the A, okay, it's assess whether you're actually committed to improving this relationship and you're willing to let go of mistrust. Okay. So if the answer is no, you could stop right here, but if you're starting to contemplate, well, maybe it's worth giving it a try. Here's some self-inquiry questions you could ask yourself to help make that determination. Okay. And it helps you to kind of weigh the pros and cons of trying to repair things. All right. So here we go. So what are the pros and cons of trusting versus mistrusting this person? Okay. And we have to remember that while mistrusting keeps us safe, it also prevents us from relating to the person. It kind of puts up a wall and it prevents us from having any kind of meaningful relationship. So can we let go of some of that? That's one of the big questions we might have to ask ourselves. Would an improved relationship help me to obtain an important goal or help me to live by my values? Okay, or valued goals, as we talked about earlier on in the radically open curriculum, right? So is it important to keep a relationship with this person for one reason or another? Like maybe they're a family member or a relative that you see a few times a year and you're always going to keep seeing them. So is it pay to help work things through? Or is it a work relationship where getting along with this person is going to make your work life better, for example? Okay. What have I found useful or rewarding in the past about this relationship? Okay, so sometimes when bad things happen, we get really focused on the problems we had with somebody, right? Because our mind naturally gravitates toward the negative. But sometimes, just to be fair, there were good parts about the relationship, or maybe there still are, but we're kind of overlooking them because we're just really focused on problems we had, right? Or why we feel like we mistrust or resent that person. So what do I want from this other person? And that could be a variety of things. Like, is there an objective that you have to meet with this person? Is there a relationship that you want? Are they going to help you meet a goal? Like, what is it that you would want? Okay. Or how would you want them to respond to you? Or what kind of level of relationship would you want? What am I afraid might happen if I were to reveal my inner feelings to this person? Okay. So when we're feeling mistrust, like I said before, we're kind of putting up a wall. You might be very guarded. We might, really not want to say much at all because we're afraid of how they're going to respond. Like we don't want to get hurt, right? So when we let go of the mistrust and we start to trust, we tend to share a little bit more with the person, right? So if you imagine yourself sharing something a little bit more personal or maybe a little bit more vulnerable with that person, how do you imagine that it would go? Or what are you most afraid of would be about their reaction if you were to share a little bit more? And am I finding it hard to think about this relationship? Question my point of view, or engage in the self-inquiry practice about my feelings when it comes to this relationship, right? So maybe there's some pain there that's holding you back, right? Or it's just kind of tensing you up just thinking about all the stuff that this relationship brings up for you, right? So if yes or maybe, then what might this mean? Okay. All right, so we're on the L, first L of allows, okay? So look for concrete evidence that mistrust is justified or that the relationship is toxic, okay? So obviously, if mistrust is really justified or a relationship is toxic, you may not want to proceed. But sometimes we tend to get so focused on the bad stuff that that person did to us that we don't reflect on our role in it or how they might have been responding to what we're putting out there. Or maybe we over exaggerated it in our mind because we were really upset about it. So it may not be quite as bad as we thought. if we really step back and look at it. So that's why it's important to look, okay, for this L here. So one of the first things we can do is to go back to lesson 8 in the flexible mind stage skill. Because as part of that skill, there's a series of questions about helping us to determine if a relationship is toxic, right? So if it's a toxic relationship, it's important to ask yourself, do I really want to get more engaged with that person? Or is it going to be too risky for me to open up to that person and try again? Okay, so that might stop it right there. But it's important just to be fair about determining whether the relationship is toxic or not. So I totally suggest going back to Flexible Mind Sage to ask yourself those questions. Okay, and then if we talk about the states of mind, that come with being over-controlled, right? Fixed mind thinking, okay, is kind of like closing off too much and getting too rigid or, blocking too much instead of being open, right, and flexible. So am I using fixed mind thinking in this situation? So am I quickly dismissing the importance of the relationship or making quick decisions about the possible trustworthiness of this person before really thinking it through, right? Am I stopping at the hurt and just being like, no way, forget it, right? Am I being fair, okay? Or am I like neglecting how it could be helpful to actually build a relationship with this person? I'm just not even letting myself thinking about it, right? So that's kind of a fixed mind approach that we may want to question. Or on the other side, am I going into fatalistic mind and giving up too fast and thinking, oh, forget it, there's no point, this is never going to get better, why even try? Okay, because that's going to hold us back as well. Okay, so notice, be mindful of whether you're in fixed mind or fatalistic mind with regard to this relationship and your feelings about it. Okay. There's also a thing called a confirmation bias, which I talked about way in the beginning of the curriculum. And that's a sign of fixed mind thinking as well, or kind of closed mind thinking. So that's pretty much like, I'm only looking for evidence that confirms the things that I'm already thinking, okay? So if I'm already thinking that this person's mistrustful and this is not gonna work, am I only looking for evidence that confirms that, right? Or if I think this person's mistrustful, oh, see, there it goes again, here's another piece of evidence, and I'm not really allowing myself to see the full picture, right? Allowing myself, okay? So let's watch out for that as well. And also, is it possible that my old hurts and my current mood are affecting how I perceive that person, right? So is that becoming the lens that I'm looking through that's distorting my view of this relationship and this person, right? So we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are, as we talked about earlier on the curriculum as well, right? So how distorted is my thinking? I have to own up to that. That's on me. That's not just on the person. Okay, so this is the second L in allows, okay? So this is loosen your grip on past hurts and fears, right? So if I determined that mistrust isn't super justified and the relationship isn't that toxic, and I'm willing to try to let go of mistrust, okay? So now it's time for me to get a little bit more open, right? So radically open, okay? So I have to start to let go of some of the resentments that I have, okay? They don't use the word resentment, but it's very similar to the idea of resentment as discussed in the 12 steps. Okay, so let me move this just a drop. Okay, so even if it's true, the person harmed me in the past, right? That actually might be really true. Is it still, at the same time, helpful to repair the relationship, right? Is it still worth it to try to let it go? Because there maybe is some good things about that person, or there's something useful about that relationship in my life, or I keep bumping into the person anyway, okay? So it doesn't have to be your best friend, but maybe there's a way to open up just a little more to make things more civil, right? Or a little bit more comfortable, okay? All right, so the next picture. All right, so another thing that's very interesting. So just because you distrust somebody, it actually doesn't mean that they distrust you back. And I've been in this situation before. I don't know if you guys have. And I was so busy hating somebody and not liking this guy that I was surprised when I bumped into him in the hallway and he was really friendly. I was thinking, because in my mind, he hated me just as much as I hated him. But sometimes it's really not true. The other person actually might still like you and not feel as hard, have hard feelings about you the way you do about them. And that might actually help you relax a little bit because you don't have to be as much on guard when the person likes you sometimes, right? You could feel like, oh, okay, it's a little safer. I can loosen up a little bit, right? So it's really important to remember. And we don't really know what they're thinking. okay? And just because I think I know what they're thinking, it doesn't mean it's true, right? So I could be assuming that they're holding resentments about me or they're judging me, but they actually might not be. That might just be in my imagination or be left over from like a negative incident I had with this person in the past. Okay, so it's important to like loosen up by remembering these things. Okay, all right, so the bottom picture here, giving the person the benefit of the doubt. Okay, and that remembering that they're doing the best they can, because even if they hurt you, they may not have done it maliciously, right? Everybody has their stuff, their problems, their emotions, their issues, and sometimes they're clumsy in the way they interact with people, or they don't think sometimes or empathize or say things in a way that comes across the right way. And they don't mean it, but they just, you just make dumb mistakes sometimes, and we do it too, right? It's not like we're blameless, right? We do dumb stuff too. So we got to remember, like, just as I would want someone to give me a break, maybe it's worth giving them a break. Okay, maybe they just did something that they regret too, and they're feeling bad about it. Who knows, right? So we're all doing the best we can. It's important to remember that. Okay. Also, think about a time, even if it's not the person you have in mind, right, where you had a negative assumption about somebody and it turned out you actually were wrong, God forbid, right? So you made an assumption, you thought you did something or thought something or whatever, and you found out later on that you misperceived the situation. Whoops, right? So acknowledging that we're mistaken is important because, just like we don't like to be falsely accused, neither does other people, right? And if we realize we're wrong, we could let some of it go, right? We could loosen our grip on the past hurts and fears. And also, we could start to forgive the person. Just as we would want to be forgiven if we messed up, we could forgive the other person for also messing up, okay? It doesn't necessarily mean they have to be our best friend. We have to fully let them into our life, but maybe we could loosen the grip a little bit and have a little bit better of a relationship, okay? So when we get to lesson 29, we're going to talk about another skill for that called flexible mind has heart. But meanwhile, I'm not going to go over that yet. We're doing this in order. Just keep in mind other forgiveness practices you might be aware of. And you could kind of rely on some of those to help let go of the hurt. And letting go of the hurt is something that helps you, right? In addition to possibly helping the relationship, it gives you more freedom, more peace of mind, more, ability to relax and stop obsessing about this thing, right? So just remember that. Okay, so now we're on the O of allows. So out yourself by revealing inner feelings, okay? So it doesn't have to be your deepest, darkest secret, so to speak. It just means maybe being a little bit more open with the person, okay? So instead of being really closed off when you interact with them, very superficial, maybe just be a little more open, a little bit more friendly, say a little bit more about what you think or feel about something, and test the waters and see how it goes, okay? So try to activate your social safety system before you do this and while you do it. So this is the big 3+1, okay, from earlier on the curriculum. So that's if the +1 is if you're sitting, you sit back in your seat and relax. Then you take a deep breath, use a closed mouth, cooperative smile, and use eyebrow wags, right? So it shows the person that you're more engageable and you're more friendly. It makes them feel safe. And it also signals to your brain that you're feeling a little more safe. And that can help you relax a little bit more around the person, okay? And before you see them, you could also use lesson 4's loving kindness meditation, which is kind of like wishing that person well or wishing someone close to you well and wishing a neutral person well. And it kind of gets you in the mindset of being a little bit more safe and socially relaxed, right? So the research has shown that helps create social safety as well. Okay. And when you're talking to them, if you're sharing your feelings, you could own up to them by using the languaging from the awareness continuum. Okay. So that was a few lessons back. So basically it's saying, I'm aware of imagining, I'm aware of feeling, I'm aware of thinking, or I'm aware of sensing something. So when I say that, I'm putting a little separation between myself and my feelings, and I'm certainly not blaming them on the other person. Okay, so it's an easier way to kind of express yourself. And also, if you're trying to express something and kind of, be a little more authentic with the person, you could use the flexible mind is deep skill from lesson 10. So that's about being genuine in expressing what you're feeling and not just saying it, but showing it with your social signaling so that you're not giving a mixed message or you're not like covering it up or things like that. Okay. And it's to really get rid of the don't hurt me responses and the pushback responses. So if you're being a little different with the person, right, you're being a little more open, you're sharing a little bit more, they might be looking at you funny at first. They might be like, wait a minute, what's going on? That's a little strange, right? So you got to give them time to adjust if it's not your norm, okay? So if you're used to being very closed and now you're being a little more open, people might notice it and, be checking it out at first. So just because they don't react exactly the way you want them to react in the beginning, don't give up. Okay, they might just be kind of like feeling you out too. All right, out of fairness. So like it says the next part, let go of expectations about how the other person is supposed to respond, right? So just because you're trying to be friendly, it doesn't mean they're supposed to be super friendly and revealing also, okay? They may not, and that's okay, all right? Everyone does their own thing. You can only control what you put out there. You can't control what they respond and do back. Okay, so don't give up, keep trying and see how it goes. All right, that was a long O, wasn't it? So now we're on the W of allows. So now we're talking a little more. I'm being a little more open. I'm expressing myself, showing my social signaling to match what I'm trying to express. So now I have to also be receptive to the other person, okay? So I'm gonna try to welcome what they're saying back to me, right? So they might have feedback for me, or they may try to be communicating different things to me. So I want to show receptivity and openness and willingness by using things such as the big 3+1, like I talked about before in this part, okay? So we're activating our social safety system while we're listening to the person as well, okay? Because it could be a little tense listening to the person, especially you don't know what they're going to say or how they're going to say it, right? So it helps to make ourselves feel safe. So if you're feeling anxious, try to avoid just running out of the room and ending it. Okay, try to stay engaged if you can. Try to work on validating the other person, like flexible mind validates. Try to understand what they have to say. And if they have feedback for you, you can use flexible mind adopts to decide if it's feedback you're willing to accept or not. Okay, and I'm going to get to that in another 2 videos from now. Okay, so because you might have put something out there as well. You may have acted in a certain way that they didn't like, and then they reacted to you, but you only paid attention to what they did. So if they have feedback for you, try to be patient, try to stay calm, and just listen. Okay, so more about the welcome feedback and continue to dialogue. Okay, so in this phase, there's a chance there could be some tension or conflict, right? Especially if an old issue comes up, right? So it might resurface some hard feelings and vulnerability on both sides, okay? So again, try to stay with it. Try not to just give up too fast or walk away. If you need to slow the pace down, that's okay. If it's getting overwhelming, just tell them maybe we should take a little break, and just own up to the choice that you're making to put it out there that maybe we should just take a break, and come back to it another time. Okay, don't give up on it forever, but maybe when we're calmer, like we could discuss this a different day, or later on. If you're expressing your feelings about the relationship, just use the awareness continuum, own up to your side of what you're feeling or thinking, okay, without blaming the other person. Okay, and if you did do something that harmed the relationship, it goes a long way to own up to that and to apologize if necessary, okay? And sometimes it just clears the air if that's what's going on, okay? All right, so here's the summary, okay? So first, we're gonna assess our commitment to improve the relationship, right? Do I even wanna try this or not? If I have some willingness, I'm gonna actually look for evidence if my hurt and mistrust is justified, okay? So it may be, it may not be, and after that, if I decide to proceed, try to loosen my grip on past hurts and fears, right? By letting things go, forgiving a little bit, owning up to my side of the street. When I interact with the person, I'm going to also try to be a little bit more open by outing myself, and revealing my inner feelings, right? So I'm going to share a little bit more openly than usual, radically open, right? And then I'm going to be receptive to the other person by welcoming any feedback they might have and try to keep the dialogue going. Stay engaged and don't give up. Okay? So there you go. Flexible mind allows. Hopes it helps you with your relationships. Okay? So I'll see you in the next video. All right? Thanks, guys. I'll see you soon.